Kamaru Usman fires back at delusional Belal Muhammad and tells him to keep dropping corny weak diss tracks. Speaking to Joe Rogan on the latest episode of the JRE podcast, Belal doubled down on his callouts of Usman and Rakhmonov, explaining how each fighter represents a different goal for his career. Legacy-wise, Usman is obviously the bigger name, and he's the guy who Dana White said was the best welterweight behind GSP, but for bogeyman-wise. And to shut up the naysayers, it's Shavkat. He is undefeated. He is the guy that everybody thinks is this killer. And then for myself, either one of them does a lot for me. Usman is probably bigger for pay-per-view numbers, and then after beating him, my resume is up there with GSP. The newly crowned welterweight champ stated Usman is a tougher opponent than Shavkat, and the Nigerian Nightmare quickly agreed with that statement in his reply. Imagine how I feel. Usman laughed on the latest episode of the Pound for Pound podcast as he dismissed Muhammad's pulling power regarding his first title defense. I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? That's how I feel. I didn't know who this guy was a couple of years ago, or last year. I didn't hear his name, and I didn't even remember his name. But I get it. When you become champion, it's the affirmation of the delusion that you've had in your mind, thinking that you could get there for all these years. So when you finally get there, you believe that delusion like, oh, I am the best. I can do this. So more power to Belal if that's how he feels, but I mean, he paid for someone to do a diss song. Even though Kamaru Usman has lost his last 3 fights, the experienced fighter with a 20-4 record was quick to remind fans that he's never been afraid to take risks. He suggested that Belal should keep that in mind as he hesitates on choosing his next opponent. Jorge Masvidal says he's in talks to make a return to the UFC. I don't care to ever go back in boxing, really. That left a bad taste in my mouth. Anyways, I'm an MMA fighter. Masvidal told MMA Fighting earlier this week, I'm eager to get back in there. I'm in great shape. Not in MMA shape, but I'm in great overall shape. I trained for about 6 months, Monday through Saturday. Then same thing, boxing, and a lot of running. So I feel like I'm going to get in there and kick someone's ass, brother. Masvidal admitted that he might take 1 or 2 more big boxing fights in the future, but right now he's focused on getting back in shape so he can make a big comeback in the UFC. It's not that I won't. I had some matches lined up, and now I guess they've seen the Nate Diaz fight and they don't want to fight no more. So you know what? We'll get right back to MMA. I'm not going to wait for nobody. A year? 6 months. I'm just getting myself in the best shape possible to do what I've always loved the most, MMA. When asked whether he'd actually engaged in any conversations with the UFC over his MMA comeback, Masvidal confirmed that he's already in negotiations with the head honchos. I've been talking to my boy Hunter. Finding out, he's like, let me check this date. Let me see if this dude wants the heat. Let me see if that guy wants to get beat up. First, we'll lock in the date and then we'll find the body. If Masvidal were aiming for the biggest comeback fight in UFC history, he'd target Conor McGregor. However, Masvidal thinks we probably won't see McGregor return to the octagon. I don't think we'll see him fighting again. Yeah, I don't think so, bro. I hope he proves me wrong, but I don't think so. Consequently, one name mentioned by Masvidal as a potential opponent is the man who was scheduled to face McGregor earlier in the year, Michael Chandler. It could be this year, Vegas, December 7th, knock Michael Chandler dead on his ass. Or it could be next year, Super Bowl, knock somebody else on their ass. I don't know. I don't quite know yet. Chandler wouldn't be a bad fight to get my feet wet again in MMA. Kind of an introductory course in MMA, you know? I wouldn't mind that fight, but there's a lot of fights out there. What do you think of Masvidal's comeback to the UFC? Leave your comments below. Again in MMA, kind of an introductory course in MMA, you know? I wouldn't mind that fight, but there's a lot of fights out there. What do you think of Masvidal's comeback to the UFC? Leave your comments below. Conor McGregor teases future bare knuckle fight against Jeremy Stephens. Conor might be more likely to step into the bare knuckle ring than return to the UFC octagon at this stage. On Instagram, McGregor said, in our co-main event, we also have who the fuck is that guy, meaning Jeremy Stephens, facing off against Bobby Taylor. Me and Jeremy in a bare knuckle fight down the line would be exciting 100%. Jeremy Stephens, a longtime UFC veteran at 38 years old, recently transitioned to bare knuckle boxing, making a successful debut against Jimmy Rivera in December 2023. Stephens and McGregor had a memorable moment during a UFC pre-fight press conference when Stephens directed a comment at McGregor, prompting the infamous "Who the f*** is that guy reply from McGregor. I got a boss now in Conor McGregor who is writing my checks, Stevens told MMA Fighting. I could potentially be fighting my own boss. There's a lot of people out there who want that Conor fight, but if he was ever to come over to bare knuckle, I'm on a hot streak. Get the ball rolling. I would love to be that guy to welcome him to bare knuckle. I don't get tired. I can take a shot. I've been in the game. I would love to max out that opportunity and put myself into those opportunities. Day by day, brick by brick, it will come. Joe Rogan reacts and criticizes Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul at 58 years old. Rogan said on his podcast, "I wish it wasn't a thing where a 58-year-old guy was going to fight a 28-year-old. That said, I fully support his desire to do it. What is he going to live forever? No, he's not going to live forever, and maybe he wants one more shot at it. Maybe his body can do one more fight." Rogan acknowledged that while the iconic boxing champion can still impress fans with his work on the training mitts, it's not the same as a full training session. He looks great on the mitts, but it's like I can look good on the mitts, especially if you're watching 30-second clips. What you want to see is him sparring or hitting the bag for multiple rounds. I want to see how your feet move if you're off balance when you throw combinations. But he's 58. I love that guy. I'm a gigantic fan of his. The question is, how much does he have left today? 58 today is not 58 when I was 21. It's a different 58, and especially if they're not testing him. Despite worries about Tyson's health, both Joe Rogan and Belal Muhammad said they're still excited to watch the drama unfold on November 15th. How much does he want to do it? Is he doing it for money? How much does he have left in the tank? Those are all questions that'll make me buy the pay-per-view. I'm going to feel bad if he gets knocked out. Conventional wisdom would say that this is a terrible fight. Conventional wisdom would say there's a 28-year-old with knockout power, real fast, young, athletic, and bold as hell. Sean O'Malley says he will look to reopen Merab Dvalishvili's cut at UFC 306. Merab got a cut on the left side of his face near his eye less than a month before his title fight against bantamweight champion O'Malley. Their fight will headline the second annual Noche UFC event on September 14th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. I am 100% gonna open up that cut, whether it's healed or not, O'Malley told Kevin Iole. I don't know how much it can heal. I've never really had any bad cuts, so I'm not sure really, but I'm going to be targeting it. That's the left side of his face, and this right hand doesn't miss. I'll probably accidentally hit his nose before I hit that cut. That nose just kind of takes up like 85% of his face. So I'm gonna try and get around his nose and get to that cut. Dana referring to him as one of the stupidest people or beyond stupid. Whatever he said was pretty accurate. O'Malley continued, I mean, the dude's just not that smart of a guy. Do you think Suga turns Merab into another highlight reel, or does Merab drown Sean with his ruthless pressure and offensive wrestling? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for daily MMA news.